53-year-old homeless veteran Sarah Jenkins' tiny vegetable garden behind an abandoned factory in Detroit would soon attract a $2 million investment from tech entrepreneur Marcus Chen, transforming not just her life but an entire struggling neighborhood into a thriving urban agriculture center that would employ over 50 formerly homeless veterans, revitalize 23 acres of blighted urban property, and become a national model for community renewal through sustainable farming practices that major cities across America would rush to replicate. What Sarah planted with nothing but discarded seeds and determination would grow into an agricultural revolution that would solve food insecurity for thousands of families living in one of America's most notorious food deserts, while proving how one veteran's military training combined with a stranger's belief in second chances could create the blueprint for urban renewal that would change how America thinks about community development, veterans affairs, and the power of sustainable agriculture to transform forgotten neighborhoods. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Sarah Jenkins' remarkable story began 53 years ago in a small farming community outside Fayetteville, North Carolina, where her parents operated a modest 80-acre vegetable farm that had been in the Jenkins family for 4 generations. Growing up as the youngest of 5 children, Sarah developed a profound connection to the land, while learning traditional farming techniques that had sustained her family through economic hardships, droughts, and changing agricultural markets. Her father, a Vietnam veteran who had returned to farming after military service, instilled in Sarah both a love for agriculture and a deep respect for military service that would shape her entire life's journey. From an early age, Sarah demonstrated exceptional problem-solving abilities and a natural talent for plant cultivation. While other children played with toys, Sarah could be found experimenting with different growing methods, soil compositions, and water conservation techniques in a small corner of the family farm that her father had designated as her personal garden plot. By age 12, Sarah had already developed several innovative irrigation solutions that increased yield in her garden plot by nearly 40% compared to standard methods used on the main farm, demonstrating the intuitive understanding of agricultural systems that would later revolutionize urban farming practices across Detroit. Sarah's childhood on the Jenkins family farm provided practical knowledge that formal education could never replicate. She learned to read weather patterns, understand soil composition through touch and smell, predict pest cycles, and implement natural solutions to common farming challenges. These hands-on skills, combined with her father's military-inspired discipline and methodical approach to problem-solving, created a foundation of knowledge that would prove invaluable during the most challenging periods of her adult life and eventually contribute to her revolutionary approach to urban agriculture. The family farm's modest success allowed Sarah to attend North Carolina State University, where she studied agricultural science with a focus on sustainable farming practices and environmental conservation. Her undergraduate research thesis on maximizing crop yields in limited spaces with minimal resources won university-wide recognition and was published in a respected agricultural journal, marking the beginning of Sarah's formal contributions to agricultural innovation that would eventually transform urban farming practices nationwide. Following family tradition and driven by patriotic duty, Sarah enlisted in the United States Army after college graduation at age 22. Her exceptional aptitude tests and agricultural background secured her a position in the Army's Quartermaster Corps, specializing in food service operations and agricultural support for military installations worldwide. This specialized role allowed Sarah to combine her farming expertise with military service, developing skills in large-scale food production, supply chain management, and resource optimization under challenging conditions that would later prove crucial to her urban farming initiatives. Sarah's military career spanned 15 years, including deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, and humanitarian missions in Haiti following the devastating 2010 earthquake. During these deployments, Sarah consistently demonstrated exceptional leadership and innovative problem-solving abilities in establishing sustainable food sources for both military personnel and civilian populations affected by conflict or natural disasters. Her work in Haiti, where she implemented rapid deployment urban gardens and refugee camps, earned her a Commendation Medal and established her reputation for creative solutions to food insecurity in resource-limited environments. In Afghanistan's Helmand province, Sarah developed a revolutionary approach to desert gardening that enabled military bases to supplement supply chains with fresh produce while providing agricultural training to local populations. This initiative not only improved nutrition for both military personnel and Afghan civilians but also created economic opportunities in communities devastated by decades of conflict. Sarah's innovative irrigation systems, constructed from repurposed military materials, demonstrated her exceptional ability to create sustainable agricultural solutions in the most challenging environments imaginable. Sarah's distinguished military service included 2 Bronze Stars for heroism during combat operations in Fallujah, Iraq, where she risked her life to rescue wounded comrades while under heavy enemy fire. Despite sustaining injuries during the operation, Sarah refused evacuation until all wounded personnel had been moved to safety, demonstrating the exceptional courage and selfless dedication that characterized her military career and would later define her approach to community service. In civilian life, the transition from military service to civilian life began promisingly for Sarah, who used her veteran benefits to establish a small agricultural consulting firm specializing in sustainable farming practices for limited space environments. Business thrived initially, with Sarah providing expertise to urban farming initiatives, community gardens, and educational institutions across the southeastern United States. Her innovative approaches to vertical farming, water conservation, and organic pest management attracted attention from environmental organizations and agricultural universities seeking sustainable solutions to growing food insecurity in urban areas. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The economic recession of 2008 devastated Sarah's consulting business as institutional. Clients cut budgets for external consultants and community projects lost funding. Despite her best efforts to adapt to changing market conditions, Sarah found herself facing mounting debt, declining contracts, and eventually bankruptcy by 2010. The financial collapse coincided with increasingly severe post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, symptoms related to her combat experiences, creating a perfect storm of challenges that would ultimately lead to her homelessness. Sarah's deteriorating mental health made maintaining steady employment increasingly difficult, while limited access to adequate veterans' mental health services prevented her from receiving the specialized care her condition required. The combination of financial hardship and untreated PTSD created a downward spiral that resulted in Sarah losing her apartment in Charlotte, North Carolina, and beginning a period of transience that would eventually lead her to Detroit, Michigan, where distant relatives had offered temporary assistance. The promise of family support in Detroit proved hollow when Sarah arrived to find her relatives facing their own financial hardships and unable to provide the housing they had promised. With nowhere to turn and resources dwindling, Sarah joined the growing population of homeless veterans in Detroit, a city already struggling with widespread poverty, unemployment, and urban decay following decades of economic decline and the devastating impact of the automotive industry's contraction. Sarah's first months of homelessness in Detroit were characterized by the harsh reality that thousands of American veterans face daily, navigating a fragmented social service system, searching for safe shelter each night, and trying to maintain dignity while basic needs remained unmet. The winter of 2011 proved particularly brutal, with record-breaking low temperatures forcing Sarah to seek refuge in overcrowded, homeless shelters where her PTSD symptoms were often triggered by the chaotic environment and lack of privacy that characterized these facilities. Despite these extreme challenges, Sarah maintained the disciplined approach to daily life that her military training had instilled. Each morning began with the same methodical routine, organizing her few possessions, performing basic hygiene tasks at public facilities, and planning her day with military precision. This structured approach to homelessness allowed Sarah to maintain a sense of control and purpose during a period when most aspects of her life seemed chaotic and unpredictable. Sarah's breakthrough moment came in spring 2012 when she discovered an abandoned factory site in Detroit's long-neglected East Side neighborhood. The property, once a thriving auto parts manufacturing facility, had sat vacant for nearly 2 decades, becoming an unofficial dumping ground for neighborhood waste and a dangerous haven for drug activity. Most residents avoided the area entirely, but Sarah's military assessment training allowed her to see beyond the hazards to recognize the property's potential. The abandoned 2-acre factory site featured surprising advantages for urban agriculture, relatively uncontaminated soil in areas where the building had prevented industrial chemicals from leaching into the ground, a partially intact water collection system from the factory's roof that could be repurposed for irrigation, and excellent sun exposure unblocked by surrounding buildings that had long since been demolished in the struggling neighborhood. With permission from a sympathetic security guard who occasionally patrolled the area, Sarah cleared a small 10 by -10-foot plot behind the factory's loading dock, an area hidden from street view that would allow her garden to develop without attracting unwanted attention or vandalism. Using discarded plastic containers from nearby dumpsters, broken bricks for raised bed borders, and seeds collected from food distributed at local homeless shelters, Sarah established the humble beginning of what would eventually become Detroit's largest urban farming initiative. The initial garden required tremendous ingenuity to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Without access to traditional gardening tools, Sarah fashioned implements from discarded materials, a shovel from an old metal sign attached to a wooden post, watering cans from punctured plastic bottles, and trellises constructed from discarded wire fencing. Each solution reflected the same creative problem-solving approach that had distinguished Sarah's military service in resource-limited environments overseas. Sarah's military training in security and perimeter control proved essential for protecting her fragile garden from potential destruction. She established subtle markers around the garden perimeter that would indicate if anyone had entered the area during her absence, camouflaged the most valuable plants among less desirable ones, and created decoy growing areas to divert attention from her actual crops. These tactical approaches, developed during her deployment in hostile territories, now served to protect her modest food source in one of America's most challenging urban environments. The first harvest from Sarah's hidden garden was modest, but profoundly significant: a handful of radishes, a small bunch of kale, and a few early tomatoes provided not only vital nutrition, but also a renewed sense of purpose and accomplishment that had been absent since her military discharge. The ability to create something productive from discarded materials in abandoned space represented a powerful metaphor for Sarah's own potential for renewal and transformation despite the challenging circumstances she faced. As her garden expanded over the following months, Sarah began to attract attention from curious neighborhood residents who noticed her regular presence at the abandoned factory site. Initially suspicious of her activities, local residents gradually became intrigued by the unexpected transformation taking place in a space they had long considered worthless and dangerous. Sarah's willingness to share her limited harvest and knowledge about urban gardening slowly built trust with neighborhood residents who had seen countless community improvement initiatives fail to deliver on promised changes. Tamika Johnson, a 72-year-old neighborhood resident who had lived on the same block for over 4 decades, became Sarah's first community ally after observing her working in the garden for several weeks. Approaching cautiously one morning, Tamika brought Sarah a thermos of coffee and expressed curiosity about the garden project. This simple act of kindness marked the beginning of a crucial partnership that would help bridge the gap between Sarah, an outsider to the neighborhood, and the tight-knit community that had endured decades of broken promises and failed revitalization efforts. Through Tamika's community connections, Sarah gained access to additional resources that accelerated her garden's development. Discarded lumber from a nearby construction site provided materials for expanded raised beds. Window screens from abandoned houses became pest barriers, and 5-gallon buckets discarded by a local restaurant were repurposed as growing containers for plants, requiring deeper root systems than her shallow beds could provide. Sarah's expanding garden soon included innovative features that reflected her military training in resource optimization. A rainwater collection system constructed from discarded gutters and plastic barrels captured precious water from the factory's remaining roof sections. Compost bins built from wooden pallets recycled food waste from nearby households into valuable growing medium. Vertical growing structures maximize production in limited space while providing natural shade for heat-sensitive crops during Detroit's increasingly hot summers. By late summer 2012, Sarah's garden had expanded to nearly 1,500 square feet and was producing enough food to provide supplemental nutrition for herself and several elderly neighbors who struggled with limited fixed incomes and poor access to fresh produce in a neighborhood widely recognized as a food desert. The garden's success represented more than just food production. It had become a symbol of possibility in a community where hopelessness had long been the prevailing sentiment. Sarah's garden attracted occasional visitors from local community organizations, including Jason Williams, an outreach worker from Detroit Veteran Services who discovered the garden while searching for homeless veterans in the area. Impressed by Sarah's initiative and recognizing her unaddressed PTSD symptoms, Jason connected her with specialized veterans' mental health services and temporary housing through a VA-supported program for homeless veterans. This intervention provided crucial stability that allowed Sarah to focus more energy on her expanding garden project while beginning to address the underlying trauma that had contributed to her homelessness. With access to basic shelter and mental health support, Sarah began documenting her urban gardening techniques, creating detailed plans for maximizing food production in limited urban spaces with minimal resources. Her military training in standardized procedures and systematic documentation created a valuable blueprint for urban agriculture that addressed challenges specific to Detroit's climate, soil conditions, and resource limitations. These documents would later form the foundation for training materials used throughout the city's expanding urban farm network. Sarah's systematic approach to the garden project included careful tracking of production metrics, resource utilization, and nutrition outputs that demonstrated the potential economic and health impacts of expanded urban agriculture in Detroit's food deserts. These data-driven assessments, reflecting the analytical approach she had developed during military service, would eventually prove crucial for attracting investment in her vision for community-based urban agriculture as an economic development strategy. The garden's expansion attracted increasing attention from local media, with the Detroit Free Press publishing a small feature article about the homeless veterans' victory garden in September 2012. The article, while modest in scope, included a powerful photograph of Sarah tending carefully arranged vegetable rows with the abandoned factory looming in the background. The visual contrast between decay and renewal resonated with readers and began generating brought her interest in both Sarah's personal story and the potential for urban agriculture to address multiple challenges facing struggling Detroit neighborhoods. Among those who read the newspaper article was Marcus Chen, a 42-year-old tech entrepreneur who had recently relocated his company's headquarters to downtown Detroit as part of the city's emerging technology sector. Born to immigrant parents who had operated a small produce market in San Francisco's Chinatown, Marcus had a personal connection to food systems and community resilience that made Sarah's story particularly compelling. Though his tech company had made him a millionaire many times over, Marcus maintained a deep interest in sustainable agriculture and community development that connected to his family's roots in small-scale food retail. Marcus' initial interest in Sarah's garden was purely personal. The story of resilience and innovation resonated with his own family's immigrant experience and entrepreneurial spirit. Without any specific agenda, he decided to visit the garden site himself, rather than sending a representative from his philanthropic foundation, a decision that would prove transformative for both Sarah and the surrounding community. Driving his own modest electric car, rather than the luxury vehicle his wealth could afford, Marcus arrived at the garden site on a crisp October morning in 2012, unannounced and unexpected. Sarah's first encounter with Marcus reflected the wariness she had developed through years of homelessness and institutional disappointment. When the well-dressed stranger appeared at the edge of her garden, Sarah initially assumed he represented either city code enforcement or the property owner coming to shut down her unauthorized garden project. Her defensive posture and cautious responses reflected the protective instincts that homelessness had reinforced, while Marcus' genuine curiosity and respectful questions gradually established a tentative trust that would become the foundation for an extraordinary partnership. Their initial conversation lasted nearly 3 hours as Sarah provided a detailed tour of the garden's innovative features, explaining her methodical approach to urban agriculture and sharing her vision for how similar initiatives could transform vacant properties throughout Detroit while addressing food insecurity and creating meaningful work for struggling residents, particularly fellow veterans who face challenges similar to her own. Marcus listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that reflected his own knowledge of agricultural systems, while recognizing the unique insights Sarah's military background and homelessness experience brought to urban farming challenges. The turning point in their conversation came when Sarah shared her comprehensive plans for expanding the garden into a community-based agricultural center that would combine food production with education, job training, and economic development. The detailed documents, meticulously prepared despite her limited resources, demonstrated both the scope of her vision and the practical expertise needed to implement it successfully. Marcus recognized immediately that Sarah's project represented more than just a heartwarming human interest story. It offered a viable model for addressing multiple urban challenges through a single integrated approach. Before leaving the garden that day, Marcus made Sarah a surprising proposal. Rather than simply donating to her project, he wanted to establish a formal partnership that would provide both financial investment and business development support to transform her small garden into a full-scale community agricultural center. The proposal included a shocking initial investment of $50,000 to secure legal access to the property and begin immediate expansion, with the potential for up to $2 million in phased investment as the project developed successful operational models. Sarah's initial response reflected the caution that years of disappointment had instilled. She had encountered numerous promises of support that failed to materialize and was understandably skeptical of sudden good fortune. Rather than immediately accepting Marcus' offer, she requested time to consider the implications and develop a formal proposal that would ensure the project remained true to her vision of community benefit rather than becoming another failed corporate initiative disconnected from neighborhood needs and realities. Marcus respected Sarah's cautious approach, recognizing that her skepticism reflected wisdom rather than ingratitude. They agreed to meet again in 1 week, giving Sarah time to refine her vision and Marcus the opportunity to investigate the property's ownership and legal status. This respectful beginning established a partnership model based on mutual respect and shared commitment to community transformation rather than traditional philanthropic dynamics that often place donors in control while relegating community members to passive recipient roles. The week between their initial meeting and follow-up discussion proved transformative for both Sarah and Marcus. Sarah worked tirelessly to develop a comprehensive business plan that incorporated both short-term goals for property acquisition and garden expansion and long-term vision for community economic development through urban agriculture. Her military training and strategic planning, combined with her agricultural expertise, created a detailed roadmap for transforming the abandoned property into a productive community asset. Meanwhile, Marcus discovered that the abandoned factory property had reverted to city ownership after years of tax delinquency, creating an opportunity to acquire the site through Detroit's program for community-based redevelopment of blighted properties. His team of attorneys and real estate specialists identified pathways for securing the entire 2-acre property for community agricultural use while ensuring that ownership would be structured through a community land trust rather than private investors, protecting the project's long-term community benefit regardless of future economic pressures. Their second meeting took place at a small coffee shop near the garden site, where Sarah presented her detailed implementation plan and Marcus shared his findings regarding property acquisition. The alignment between Sarah's vision and Marcus' approach to community investment created immediate synergy, with both recognizing the potential for creating a transformative model that could be replicated throughout Detroit and in struggling urban centers nationwide. The partnership agreement they developed during that meeting established a unique framework that would guide the project's development over the coming years. Rather than creating a traditional nonprofit organization dependent on ongoing donations, they designed a hybrid social enterprise model that would generate sustainable revenue through multiple channels while maintaining community control and veteran employment as core operational principles. This innovative structure reflected both Sarah's military understanding of self-sustaining systems and Marcus' entrepreneurial approach to social impact. The initial $50,000 investment Marcus provided allowed Sarah to take immediate steps toward formalizing and expanding the garden project. The first priority was securing legal access to the property through Detroit's Community Agricultural Land Acquisition Program, which required formal business registration, site planning approval, and commitment to specific community benefit metrics. Sarah's meticulous documentation and clear vision streamlined this process, with city officials expressing surprise at the comprehensive planning that had preceded formal investment. With legal access secured by December 2012, Sarah implemented the first phase of expansion during Detroit's winter months, a challenging time for outdoor agriculture but ideal for infrastructure development and community engagement. The abandoned factory's main structure, while unsafe for occupancy, provided valuable materials for garden infrastructure when carefully deconstructed. Sarah organized community volunteers, many of them fellow veterans, to salvage usable materials while clearing space for expanded growing areas when spring arrived. The project's first formal employee was Sarah herself, who transitioned from homelessness to a modest salary as garden director, with temporary housing provided in a renovated construction trailer placed on the property. This arrangement allowed Sarah to provide 24-hour security for the developing site, while dedicating herself fully to implementing the expansion plan that would transform her small garden into a community agricultural center. By March 2013, the site's transformation was well underway, with 20 raised garden beds constructed from salvaged materials, a greenhouse built within the factory's former loading dock using recovered windows, and a rainwater collection system, capable of supporting an acre of intensive urban agriculture without relying on city water supplies. These initial developments attracted growing community interest, with neighborhood residents beginning to see potential in what had long been considered a dangerous, worthless property. The project's official launch as Victory Gardens Detroit in April 2013 marked a significant milestone, with over 200 community members attending an opening ceremony that featured remarks from city officials, veteran service organizations, and neighborhood leaders. Sarah's brief speech that day reflected the humble determination that had characterized her journey. From homelessness to community leadership, this garden began with discarded seeds in discarded soil on discarded land. Today we're showing that nothing and no one should ever be considered worthless. With proper care and commitment, everything and everyone has potential to grow and contribute. The name Victory Gardens Detroit intentionally connected the project to America's World War II history of community-based agriculture, while honoring the military service of Sarah and other veterans involved in the initiative. This thoughtful branding reflected Sarah's understanding that successful community projects must connect to meaningful historical narratives while addressing contemporary challenges through innovative approaches. As the 2013 growing season progressed, Victory Gardens Detroit expanded its operations to include weekly community markets, providing affordable fresh produce to neighborhood residents, cooking demonstrations using garden harvests, and agricultural training programs specifically designed for veterans struggling with employment challenges and PTSD. These integrated programs reflected Sarah's holistic understanding of food systems as connecting points for addressing multiple community needs. Simultaneously, the project's rapid development attracted growing media attention, with regional television coverage and a feature article in Urban Farmer magazine, bringing national visibility to the innovative approach Victory Gardens Detroit was taking to urban agriculture and veteran employment. This increased visibility brought both opportunities and challenges, with Sarah working diligently to maintain community control and benefit, while leveraging growing public interest to advance the project's mission. Marcus Chen's involvement evolved beyond financial investment to include strategic business development support, with his company's software engineers developing specialized inventory management and production tracking systems that allowed Victory Gardens Detroit to operate with exceptional efficiency while gathering valuable data on urban agricultural productivity. This technology integration reflected Marcus' understanding that successful social enterprises require the same operational excellence as traditional businesses, with added emphasis on measuring social impact alongside financial performance. By fall 2013, Victory Gardens Detroit had expanded to occupy nearly 1 acre of the 2-acre property, with infrastructure development continuing on remaining sections. The project employed 8 full-time staff members, including 6 veterans who had previously experienced homelessness and had distributed over 15,000 pounds of fresh produce to neighborhood residents through subsidized market programs that accepted SNAP benefits and offered additional discounts for seniors and families with children. The second phase of Marcus Chen's investment, totaling $500,000, was triggered in November 2013 when Victory Gardens Detroit achieved its first year performance targets for community engagement, food production, and veteran employment. This substantial funding allowed for development of year-round growing capacity through construction of a large greenhouse complex utilizing geothermal heating systems and innovative aquaponic growing methods that Sarah had researched during her agricultural consulting career before homelessness. The greenhouse complex, completed in February 2014, transformed Victory Gardens Detroit from a seasonal growing operation to a year-round agricultural center capable of producing fresh vegetables throughout Detroit's harsh winters. This expanded capacity created stable employment for veteran staff, while providing consistent access to fresh produce in a neighborhood where winter food options had historically been limited to processed foods available at convenience stores and liquor shops that served as de facto grocery outlets in the food desert. The year-round production capability attracted attention from local restaurants, seeking reliable sources of locally grown produce, creating a wholesale market that supplemented Victory Gardens Detroit's community-focused distribution and strengthened the project's financial sustainability. This market diversification reflected Sarah's strategic approach to building resilient systems, a principle she had learned through both military training and agricultural experience. As Victory Gardens Detroit expanded its operations throughout 2014, Sarah Jenkins' leadership style reflected the best aspects of her military training: clear communication, strategic planning, and unwavering commitment to mission success, while caring deeply for those under her command. Rather than adopting the hierarchical structure typical of many organizations, Sarah created a collaborative work environment where every team member's input was valued and incorporated into operational planning. This approach proved particularly effective for the veteran employees, many of whom had struggled in traditional workplace environments but thrived in Victory Gardens' culture of mutual respect and shared purpose. The veteran-focused employment program that formed the core of Victory Gardens Detroit's social mission went far beyond simply providing jobs. Sarah developed a comprehensive support system that addressed the complex challenges facing veterans, transitioning from homelessness to stable employment. Morning meetings began with optional mindfulness sessions specifically designed for managing PTSD symptoms. Work schedules accommodated VA medical appointments without penalty. Peer support was built into daily operations, with veterans pairing experienced employees with newcomers to create natural mentorship, relationships that enhanced both practical training and emotional adjustment to workplace routines. James Wilkinson, a 42-year-old Army veteran who joined Victory Gardens after 3 years of homelessness following his discharge, described the transformative impact of Sarah's approach. "Before coming here, I'd tried working at 7 different places. Every time, the noise, the pressure, the feeling of being trapped inside would trigger my PTSD until I couldn't function. Here, Sarah understood without me having to explain. She showed me how to work with the land, when to take breaks, how to use physical work to process what's going on in my head. For the first time since leaving the service, I feel like my military experience is valued instead of being the thing that keeps me from succeeding." The greenhouse complex, completed in early 2014, represented more than just expanded growing capacity. It became a community education center where neighborhood residents could learn practical gardening skills applicable to their own small-scale food production. Weekly workshops on container gardening, seed starting, and food preservation attracted growing attendance as local residents recognized the potential for supplementing tight food budgets with homegrown produce. These educational programs reflected Sarah's belief that true food security required both centralized production and distributed knowledge that empowered individuals to participate in their own food systems. Martha Davis, an 84-year-old neighborhood resident who had lived through the neighborhood's transition from thriving industrial center to abandoned urban landscape, became a regular workshop participant despite initial skepticism about the project. "I've seen programs come and go for 60 years, she told a local reporter during a community event. "Everyone has big plans until the funding runs out. Then they disappear, leaving us with another empty building and broken promises. But this is different. Sarah and her team are teaching us to grow our own food, not just handing out charity. They're here every day, working harder than anyone, and the whole neighborhood is starting to believe this might actually last." The educational programs expanded to include partnerships with local schools, bringing students from throughout Detroit to experience hands-on learning about food systems, environmental science, and nutrition. These field trip programs, developed in collaboration with Detroit Public Schools science curriculum coordinators, provided valuable educational experiences while introducing young people to positive models of veteran contribution to civilian communities. For many students from Detroit's most challenging neighborhoods, these visits provided first encounters with veterans whose service and sacrifice had previously been abstract concepts rather than living examples of citizenship and community leadership. By summer 2014, Victory Gardens Detroit's reputation had spread throughout the city, attracting visitors from other neighborhoods seeking to replicate the model in their own communities. Sarah developed a weekend training program specifically designed for community leaders interested in transforming vacant properties into productive urban farms. This Victory Gardens Academy provided comprehensive instruction in both technical, agricultural methods and community organizing strategies needed for successful project implementation. Graduates received ongoing mentorship and access to a seed bank developed from Victory Gardens Detroit's expanding variety of crops specifically adapted to urban growing conditions. The growing regional interest in Victory Gardens Detroit attracted attention from city officials seeking successful models for addressing Detroit's estimated 40,000 vacant properties. Mayor Richard Coleman visited the site in July 2014, bringing along representatives from the city's planning department, Economic Development Office, and Health Department to observe the multifaceted impacts of the project. Following this visit, the city established an urban agriculture task force to develop policies supporting expansion of similar initiatives throughout Detroit, with Sarah appointed as a key advisor providing perspective from successful implementation experience. Marcus Chen's involvement evolved beyond financial support to include strategic business development and technology integration that enhanced Victory Gardens Detroit's operations. His software company developed specialized inventory management and production tracking systems that allowed the urban farm to operate with exceptional efficiency while gathering valuable data on urban agricultural productivity. This technological infrastructure provided crucial information for optimizing growing methods, tracking community impact, and demonstrating the economic viability of urban agriculture as a cornerstone of neighborhood revitalization. What makes this partnership work? Marcus explained during a business leadership conference where Victory Gardens Detroit was featured as a case study in social enterprise, is that we're combining Sarah's extraordinary agricultural expertise and community connection with business principles and technology that can scale the impact. This isn't charity. It's investment in a viable model for urban renewal that happens to create tremendous social benefit while building economic value from previously abandoned resources. The return on investment isn't just financial, though the project is moving steadily towards sustainability. The return includes neighborhood transformation, veteran employment, improved public health, and creation of transferable models that can be implemented in challenged urban areas throughout the country. The financial model that Sarah and Marcus developed for Victory Gardens Detroit reflected innovative thinking about sustainable social enterprise. Rather than relying solely on grants or donations, the operation generated revenue through multiple channels. Wholesale produce sales to restaurants and grocery stores provided the largest income stream, supplemented by educational program fees, consulting services for similar initiatives in other cities, and value-added products like preserved foods and seedlings that extended the economic value of primary agricultural production. This diversified revenue approach created resilience while demonstrating that social mission and business viability could be successfully integrated. As Victory Gardens Detroit approached its one-year anniversary of formal operations in April 2014, the project's impact extended far beyond its physical boundaries. Property values in surrounding blocks had increased by an average of 15%, reflecting growing confidence in the neighborhood's future. Crime rates showed significant decrease, with police reports noting that increased positive activity and community presence had displaced negative behaviors previously common in the abandoned area. Neighborhood residents reported improved access to fresh food, with 78% of households within a half-mile radius having purchased produce from Victory Gardens, Detroit's community market, at least once during the previous year. The third phase of Marcus Chen's investment, bringing the total to $1.2 million, was released in August 2014 following comprehensive impact assessment that verified the project's success across multiple metrics. This substantial funding allowed Victory Gardens Detroit to acquire an additional adjacent property, expanding total land holdings to nearly 5 acres and creating opportunity for significant production increases. The expansion included development of specialized growing areas for high-value crops that would enhance financial sustainability while maintaining strong commitment to affordable community access to nutritious produce. The additional property included a more structurally sound industrial building that, unlike the original deteriorated factory, could be renovated for year-round use as a food processing facility, educational center, and community gathering space. Renovation began in September 2014, with careful attention to preserving architectural elements that connected to the area's industrial heritage while creating flexible, energy-efficient spaces that would serve multiple community needs. The renovation incorporated solar energy systems, advanced water recycling technology, and energy-efficient design that reflected Victory Gardens Detroit's commitment to environmental sustainability. Sarah's vision for the expanded facility included creating Detroit's first veteran-focused culinary training program, where formerly homeless veterans could develop food service skills utilizing produce grown on site. This workforce development initiative addressed the reality that not all veterans were suited for agricultural work, while creating additional employment pathways and enhancing the project's financial sustainability through value-added food products and potential future cafe operations that would extend economic impact beyond primary agricultural production. The culinary program development began in fall 2014 with curriculum design led by Chef David Rodriguez, a Marine Corps veteran who had built a successful restaurant career after military service. Chef Rodriguez approached the program development with deep understanding of how kitchen work could either trigger or help process PTSD symptoms, depending on how the environment was structured. His curriculum integrated practical culinary skills with mindfulness techniques specifically designed for veterans working in high-pressure food service environments, creating a training approach that addressed both vocational and psychological aspects of successful employment transition. The kitchen and the battlefield have more in common than most people realize, Chef Rodriguez explained during a community information session about the new program. Both environments require intense focus, clear communication, teamwork under pressure, and the ability to adapt when things don't go according to plan. Veterans already have these foundational skills from military service. Our program builds on that foundation while teaching specific techniques for channeling hypervigilance into food quality, awareness, and transforming mission focus into customer service excellence. We're not just teaching cooking, we're creating a pathway where military experience becomes a professional advantage rather than a barrier to civilian success. The culinary program's development coincided with growing interest from local restaurants seeking to support veteran employment. While accessing the exceptional produce Victory Gardens Detroit was becoming known for, Sarah leveraged these relationships to create apprenticeship opportunities, partnering with 10 respected Detroit restaurants that would provide advanced training and potential employment for graduates of the on-site culinary program. These partnerships extended Victory Gardens Detroit's impact into the broader local food economy while creating sustainable employment pathways for program participants. As renovation of the food processing facility progressed through fall 2014, Victory Gardens Detroit continued expanding its agricultural production capacity, with the original garden site now encompassing nearly 2 acres of intensive urban agriculture. The growing operation employed 15 full-time staff members, including 12 veterans who had previously experienced homelessness, and produced over 50,000 pounds of produce during the 2014 growing season. Distribution remained focused on community access, with 60% of production sold through affordable community markets, and the remainder supporting financial sustainability through wholesale relationships with restaurants and grocery stores. The project's success attracted national media attention, with a feature segment on PBS NewsHour in November 2014, bringing Victory Gardens, Detroit to viewers throughout the country. The 10-minute segment followed Sarah through a typical day. From early morning greenhouse work through community market operations and veteran training sessions, highlighting both the agricultural innovation and the human impact of the project. Viewer response was overwhelming, with hundreds of communities reaching out to inquire about implementing similar models in their own struggling neighborhoods. This national exposure accelerated development of Victory Gardens Detroit's consulting services, with Sarah and key staff members developing structured training programs for community leaders, seeking to replicate aspects of the model. By December 2014, Victory Gardens had provided consulting services to emerging urban agriculture initiatives in 12 cities, generating additional revenue while fulfilling the project's mission of spreading effective approaches to community renewal through sustainable food systems and veteran employment. Marcus Chen's final investment installment, bringing the total to $2 million, was released in January 2015 following comprehensive evaluation of the project's development and impact. Rather than simply providing these funds directly to Victory Gardens Detroit, Marcus worked with Sarah to establish a revolving loan fund that would support development of similar veteran-led urban agriculture initiatives throughout Detroit, creating a sustainable funding mechanism that would continue supporting community renewal long after the initial investment had been fully deployed. The Victory Gardens Detroit Revolving Loan Fund offered low-interest financing specifically designed for veteran-led urban agriculture projects, with loan terms structured to accommodate the unique cash flow patterns of seasonal agricultural operations. The fund provided not just financial resources but also technical assistance, connecting loan recipients with Victory Gardens Detroit's expertise, while creating a growing network of veteran farmers, transforming vacant properties throughout the city. This innovative approach to expanding impact reflected both Sarah's commitment to supporting fellow veterans and Marcus' understanding of how financial tools could be structured to create sustainable social change. Winter 2015 brought new challenges as record cold temperatures tested the greenhouse heating systems and increased energy costs beyond projected budgets. Sarah's military training in crisis management proved invaluable as she led the team through operational adjustments that maintained production while reducing energy consumption. These challenges became learning opportunities, with engineering improvements to heating systems creating models for more efficient urban greenhouse operation in northern climates. The experience reinforced Sarah's core philosophy that obstacles should be approached as opportunities for innovation rather than reasons for retreat. The coldest months also provided valuable time for team development, with Sarah implementing an expanded training program for all staff members. Weekly sessions covered topics ranging from advanced growing techniques to business operations, ensuring that everyone involved with Victory Gardens Detroit understood both day-to-day procedures and the broader strategic vision guiding the project. This comprehensive approach to staff development reflected Sarah's belief that sustainable organizations require shared understanding of both operational details and organizational purpose. For veteran employees, winter training included specialized sessions addressing challenges common during the difficult transition from military service to civilian employment. Workshop topics included translating military skills to civilian resumes, managing PTSD in workplace environments, accessing veteran benefits, and financial planning for long-term stability. These practical supports supplemented the daily work experience, creating a holistic approach to veteran reintegration that addressed both economic and personal dimensions of successful transition. Construction of the food processing facility was completed in March 2015, despite weather delays and unexpected structural issues discovered during renovation. The completed facility included a commercial kitchen for value-added product development, flexible classroom space for educational programs, and community meeting areas that neighborhood organizations could access for events and gatherings. The building's design intentionally connected to the area's industrial heritage while incorporating state-of-the-art systems for energy efficiency and environmental sustainability, creating a physical space that embodied Victory Gardens Detroit's commitment to honoring history while building toward a more sustainable future. The facility's grand opening in April 2015 coincided with Victory Gardens Detroit's second anniversary, creating opportunity for community celebration of the project's rapid development and expanding impact. Over 500 people attended the day-long event, which included cooking demonstrations, gardening workshops, children's activities, and tours of both agricultural operations and the new facility. Mayor Coleman delivered remarks praising the initiative as a national model for how urban communities can transform abandonment into opportunity through innovative partnerships and veteran leadership. The anniversary celebration highlighted the project's impressive two-year statistics: 72,000 pounds of produce grown and distributed, 24 full-time jobs created, 18 filled by formerly homeless veterans, 5,000 community members participating in educational programs, 3 acres of blighted property transformed into productive space, and 40% progress toward complete financial sustainability through earned income. These metrics demonstrated the multifaceted impact of the project while showing clear progress toward the goal of creating a self-sustaining social enterprise that would continue serving the community regardless of external funding availability. Looking beyond these quantifiable outcomes, the celebration emphasized the less measurable but equally important impacts on community perception and individual lives. Neighborhood residents spoke about walking with pride rather than fear through streets that had previously been dominated by abandoned buildings and illegal activity. Veterans employed by the project shared stories of transition from hopelessness to purposeful work. Children described growing their first vegetables in home containers after participating in Victory Gardens educational programs. These narrative metrics complemented statistical measures, demonstrating how urban agriculture could catalyze holistic community renewal that extended far beyond food production. The second anniversary marked a transition point in Sarah's leadership role, as she shifted from day-to-day operational management to strategic development focused on replicating the Victory Gardens Detroit model in additional neighborhoods. This transition reflected both organizational maturity and Sarah's recognition that the project's greatest potential impact lay in creating a replicable approach to urban renewal rather than continuously expanding a single site. By developing systems and training leaders who could implement similar initiatives throughout Detroit and beyond, Sarah leveraged her expertise for maximum community benefit while creating advancement opportunities for veteran employees ready to assume greater responsibility within the original operation. Marcus Chen's involvement also evolved during this period, shifting from direct operational support to development of specialized technologies and systems that could enhance urban agriculture effectiveness across multiple sites. His company created mobile applications for production tracking, developed sensor systems for monitoring growing conditions, and designed inventory management tools specifically adapted to the unique needs of community-based agricultural operations. These technological contributions enhanced Victory Gardens Detroit's efficiency while creating tools that could support similar initiatives regardless of geographic location. The partnership between Sarah and Marcus had developed into a model of effective collaboration between social mission leadership and business expertise, demonstrating how these perspectives could complement rather than conflict with each other when guided by shared commitment to community benefit. Their working relationship highlighted the potential for cross-sector partnerships that respect the distinct value each participant brings while maintaining clear focus on measurable impact for vulnerable populations and struggling communities. As spring 2015 brought renewed growing activity to Victory Gardens Detroit, the project's influence continued expanding throughout the city and beyond. 5 new veteran-led urban farms had launched with support from the Revolving Loan Fund, transforming an additional 12 acres of vacant property into productive agricultural space. Victory Gardens Academy had trained over 200 community leaders from 37 cities in urban agriculture development and operation. The culinary training program had graduated its first cohort of 15 formerly homeless veterans, with 12 already employed in partner restaurants and the remaining 3 developing food businesses based at Victory Gardens Detroit's commercial kitchen facility. These expanding impacts fulfilled the vision Sarah had first articulated when showing Marcus her hand-drawn plans during their initial meeting, a comprehensive approach to community renewal that addressed food security, economic opportunity, veteran reintegration, and environmental sustainability through a single integrated model. What had begun as a hidden garden behind an abandoned factory had grown into a movement transforming not just physical spaces but also possibilities for urban communities and veteran lives throughout Detroit and beyond. By summer 2015, Victory Gardens Detroit had become more than a successful urban farm. It represented a revolutionary approach to community renewal that was attracting attention from urban planners, policymakers, and community advocates nationwide. The model Sarah Jenkins had created demonstrated how multiple urban challenges could be addressed simultaneously through integrated systems that connected food production with economic opportunity, environmental restoration, and veteran reintegration. Detroit Magazine's July 2015 cover featured an aerial photograph of Victory Gardens Detroit's expanding campus, with the headline, "Growing Hope: How One Homeless Veteran's Vision is Transforming Detroit." The 8-page feature article detailed the project's development from Sarah's initial hidden garden to the thriving community hub it had become, highlighting both the impressive physical transformation and the profound human impact that extended throughout the surrounding neighborhood and beyond. 3 years ago, this was one of Detroit's most notorious dead zones, the article began. Today, it's a vibrant center of community activity, economic opportunity, and nutritional access that's changing how cities across America think about urban renewal. The transformation began not with government programs or corporate development, but with one homeless veteran who saw potential where others saw only abandonment and decay. The magazine feature brought national attention that accelerated interest in the Victory Gardens model, with inquiries from municipalities, foundations, and veteran organizations throughout the country seeking information about implementing similar approaches in their own communities. Sarah's inbox filled with hundreds of messages weekly, from small neighborhood groups to major city planning departments, all asking essentially the same question: how can we replicate what you've accomplished? This overwhelming response prompted Sarah and Marcus to develop a more systematic approach to sharing the Victory Gardens model. In August 2015, they launched the Victory Gardens Institute, a specialized training and consulting organization focused exclusively on helping other communities implement adapted versions of the Detroit model. The institute operated as a separate entity from the original farm, allowing Sarah to divide her time between continuing development of the flagship operation and sharing methodology with emerging initiatives nationwide. The Victory Gardens Institute offered tiered services, ranging from downloadable resource guides to to comprehensive on-site implementation support. Communities could access basic planning templates and operational guidance for free through an online knowledge base, while more intensive consulting services generated revenue that supported both the Institute's operations and the original Detroit farm. This structure reflected Sarah's commitment to making the model widely accessible while ensuring financial sustainability for the organization's continuing work. Marcus Chen's technological contributions proved particularly valuable for the Institute's knowledge-sharing mission. His team developed interactive planning tools that helped communities assess vacant properties for agricultural potential, calculate startup and operational costs based on local conditions, and project potential production volumes and revenue streams. These sophisticated digital resources complemented Sarah's practical agricultural expertise, creating a comprehensive support system for communities implementing their own versions of the Victory Gardens model. The Institute's first major consulting contract came from Philadelphia, where city officials were seeking solutions for nearly 40,000 vacant properties concentrated in neighborhoods experiencing high unemployment and limited food access. A team from Philadelphia visited Victory Gardens Detroit in September 2015, spending a week observing operations and meeting with staff to understand both technical systems and organizational culture. Following this immersion experience, Sarah and 2 veteran staff members traveled to Philadelphia for site assessment and community engagement, beginning a partnership that would eventually create Philadelphia's largest urban agriculture initiative. Similar consulting relationships developed with Baltimore, Cleveland, St. Louis, and Milwaukee, all cities facing challenges of vacant property, food insecurity, and veteran homelessness similar to Detroit's experience. In each location, the Victory Gardens Institute provided customized implementation guidance that adapted the core model to local conditions while maintaining fundamental principles of veteran leadership, community ownership, and integrated approaches to food production and economic development. These expanding consulting relationships created new leadership opportunities for veteran employees who had been with Victory Gardens Detroit since its early stages. James Wilkinson, who had joined the project after 3 years of homelessness, became the Institute's training director, leading workshops for community leaders implementing their own urban agriculture initiatives. His personal journey from homelessness to organizational leadership provided powerful inspiration for both veterans and communities considering similar projects, demonstrating the transformative potential of the Victory Gardens approach. 3 years ago, I was sleeping under a highway overpass, convinced my life was over, James told participants during a training session in Cleveland. Today I'm teaching you how to transform your community using the same model that saved my life. This isn't just about growing food, it's about growing possibilities for people who've been told they have no value in places that have been treated as worthless. If there's one thing military service teaches you, it's that the most challenging environments often create the strongest people. That's true for communities too. As the Victory Gardens Institute expanded its national impact, the original Detroit operation continued evolving to address emerging community needs and opportunities. The culinary training program developed into a full-scale food business incubator, providing kitchen facilities, business development support, and market access for food entrepreneurs from the surrounding neighborhood. By fall 2015, 12 small food businesses operated from the Victory Gardens Detroit facility, creating additional employment while expanding the project's economic impact beyond direct agricultural production. Among these emerging food businesses, 6 were owned by veterans who had completed the culinary training program and discovered entrepreneurial talents previously untapped. These veteran-owned enterprises ranged from specialty bakeries using produce from the gardens to catering services, and packaged food products distributed through local grocery stores. Each business represented not just economic activity, but personal transformation, with veterans applying leadership skills developed during military service to building successful civilian careers connected to the Victory Gardens community. Michael Harrison, a 34-year-old Marine Corps veteran who had experienced 2 years of homelessness after his discharge, established Semper Pie, a bakery specializing in sweet and savory pies featuring seasonal ingredients from Victory Gardens Detroit's production. His business quickly gained popularity at local farmers markets, eventually securing wholesale accounts with 3 Detroit grocery stores and creating employment for 2 additional formerly homeless veterans. Michael's success story exemplified how the Victory Gardens model created pathways from homelessness to economic self-sufficiency through interconnected systems of support and opportunity. The military teaches you to accomplish the mission no matter what obstacles you face, Michael explained during a business development workshop for fellow veterans. When you're homeless, that training helps you survive day to day, but it doesn't have a bigger purpose. Victory Gardens gave me a mission worth accomplishing again, first as a farm worker, then as a culinary student, and now as a business owner creating opportunities for other vets. The skills were always there. What I needed was a community that believed in me and a mission that mattered. The fall 2015 harvest season brought record production for Victory Gardens Detroit, with over 65,000 pounds of produce harvested from the now 5-acre operation. Distribution remained focused on community access, with 65% of production sold through affordable markets in neighborhoods throughout Detroit that lacked adequate grocery stores. The remaining 35% supported financial sustainability through sales to restaurants, grocery stores, and food processors willing to pay premium prices for exceptional quality, locally grown produce. This production milestone coincided with completion of a comprehensive impact study conducted by researchers from Michigan State University's Department of Community Sustainability. The independent analysis documented multiple dimensions of Victory Gardens Detroit's community impact, providing empirical evidence that urban agriculture could serve as an effective catalyst for neighborhood revitalization when implemented through integrated approaches addressing food access, economic opportunity, environmental restoration, and social cohesion simultaneously. The study's findings were remarkable. Victory Gardens Detroit had created the equivalent of 42 full-time jobs, 24 direct employment positions, and 18 through supported businesses, generated $1.2 million in economic activity within a previously abandoned area, improved fresh food access for approximately 4,200 residents, reduced neighborhood crime rates by 32%, increased surrounding property values by an average of 23%, and achieved 68% progress toward complete financial sustainability through earned income rather than ongoing philanthropic support. Beyond these quantifiable metrics, the research documented qualitative impacts through extensive interviews with neighborhood residents, project participants, and community leaders. Residents reported increased neighborhood pride, stronger social connections, improved perceptions of safety, and greater optimism about the community's future. Veterans employed by the project described significant improvements in mental health, financial stability, and social integration compared to their previous experiences of homelessness and isolation. Community leaders noted how the project had changed perceptions of what was possible in Detroit's most challenged neighborhoods, inspiring additional investment and engagement from both residents and external supporters. These research findings provided powerful validation of the integrated approach Sarah had developed, demonstrating that urban agriculture could serve as a foundation for comprehensive community renewal when implemented through systems connecting food production with broader social and economic objectives. The study's documentation of multiple positive outcomes from a single intervention challenged conventional urban revitalization approaches that typically addressed housing, employment, food access, and environmental issues through separate, uncoordinated programs. In October 2015, the Michigan State Research Team presented these findings at the National Conference on Urban Sustainability in Washington, D.C., bringing Victory Gardens, Detroit's model, to the attention of federal policymakers and national foundations focused on urban renewal. The presentation generated immediate interest from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Veterans Administration, and the USDA's Urban Agriculture Division, all recognizing potential applications for their own program development. This national recognition led to a significant opportunity when the Ford Foundation approached Sarah and Marcus about expanding the Victory Gardens model through a major national initiative. The foundation proposed a $10 million, 5-year program that would implement adapted versions of the Detroit model in 20 cities nationwide, creating a network of veteran-led urban agriculture centers addressing food insecurity and economic opportunity in America's most challenged urban neighborhoods. The Ford Foundation proposal presented both tremendous opportunity and significant challenges. The potential for national impact aligned perfectly with Sarah's vision for spreading the Victory Gardens model, but the proposed implementation timeline and scale would require rapid organizational growth that might compromise the community-centered approach that had been fundamental to the Detroit project's success. Sarah and Marcus faced a critical decision about how to balance expansion opportunity with commitment to the core values that had guided Victory Gardens Detroit's development. Their response reflected the thoughtful leadership that had characterized the project from its beginning. Rather than simply accepting or rejecting the foundation's proposal, they developed an alternative approach that maintained community leadership while creating structure for national replication. Their counterproposal suggested a more measured expansion to 5 cities in the first year, with additional sites added only after successful implementation had been demonstrated and local leadership capacity developed. This measured approach would ensure quality while still creating meaningful national impact. The foundation accepted this modified proposal in November 2015, providing initial funding of $2.5 million to support expansion to 5 cities while developing systems and training materials for subsequent growth. Site selection began immediately, with priority given to cities where strong veteran organizations, available vacant land, and supportive municipal policies created favorable conditions for successful implementation. Baltimore, Philadelphia, Cleveland, St. Louis, and Newark were selected as the initial expansion locations, each presenting unique challenges and opportunities for adapting the Victory Gardens model to local conditions. As planning for national expansion proceeded, Sarah remained deeply engaged with the original Detroit operation, ensuring that growth wouldn't compromise the community connections and quality standards that had defined Victory Gardens from its beginning. The Detroit site would serve as both flagship operation and training center for the national network, with each expansion location sending implementation teams for immersive learning experiences before launching their own initiatives. The national expansion planning coincided with Victory Gardens Detroit's winter programming season, when agricultural production shifted primarily to greenhouse operations, while educational activities and community events took center stage. The winter 2015-2016 schedule included cooking classes using storage crops and greenhouse produce, sustainable agriculture workshops, veteran support groups, community planning sessions, and cultural events that maintain neighborhood engagement during Michigan's challenging winter months. These winter activities reflected Sarah's understanding that successful community agriculture required year-round engagement, extending beyond the growing season. While many urban farms reduced operations during winter months, Victory Gardens Detroit maintained full programming and employment, recognizing that community needs and veteran support couldn't simply pause when outdoor growing conditions became challenging. This commitment to year-round operation had been central to the project's success in building trusted community relationships and providing stable employment for formerly homeless veterans. December 2015 brought unexpected national attention. When President Anderson visited Victory Gardens, Detroit, during a tour highlighting innovative approaches to urban challenges. The president spent 3 hours at the site, meeting with veteran employees, touring growing operations, and participating in a community roundtable discussion about the project's impact. Following this visit, the president directed federal agencies to identify policy changes that would support similar initiatives nationwide, creating potential for systemic changes that would facilitate replication of the Victory Gardens model. The presidential visit attracted media coverage that brought Victory Gardens Detroit to television audiences nationwide. Evening news segments featured Sarah's journey from homelessness to community leadership, highlighting how her military training had provided foundation for developing innovative solutions to civilian challenges. These human interest stories complemented the growing academic and policy interest in the Victory Gardens model, creating broader public awareness of how urban agriculture could serve as catalyst for community renewal. January 2016 marked a significant transition as Sarah's role evolved to support both the original Detroit operation and the developing national network. To ensure continued quality and community connection at the flagship site, she implemented a leadership team structure that distributed responsibility among veteran employees who had developed expertise in specific aspects of the operation. This transition created advancement opportunities for long-term staff members while maintaining organizational stability during Sarah's increasing travel to support the national expansion. The leadership team included James Wilkinson overseeing agricultural operations, Michael Harrison directing the food business incubator, Tanisha Johnson managing community programs, and David Rodriguez leading culinary training, all veterans who had joined Victory Gardens during its early development and grown into positions of significant responsibility. This team approach reflected Sarah's commitment to creating leadership pathways for veterans while ensuring that no single person became indispensable to the organization's functioning. As the leadership team assumed greater responsibility for daily operations, Sarah focused on developing systems and training materials for the national expansion. Working with experts in organizational development, curriculum design, and knowledge management, she translated Victory Gardens, Detroit's operational methods into structured guidance that could support implementation in diverse communities while allowing for local adaptation. These resources ranged from technical growing guides to community engagement strategies, creating comprehensive support for the emerging national network. February 2016 brought the first tangible steps toward national expansion, with site selection teams visiting each of the 5 designated cities to identify potential locations and connect with local veteran organizations, community groups, and municipal agencies. These preliminary visits focused on building relationships and understanding local conditions, rather than imposing predetermined plans, reflecting Sarah's commitment to community-centered approaches that respected local knowledge and priorities. In each city, the site selection process actively sought locations in neighborhoods facing challenges similar to those that had surrounded Victory Gardens Detroit's original site, areas experiencing food insecurity, economic disinvestment, and high rates of veteran homelessness where urban agriculture could address multiple community needs simultaneously. This deliberate focus on challenged neighborhoods reflected the project's mission of creating opportunity where conventional development approaches had failed, demonstrating alternatives to gentrification-based revitalization that typically displaced rather than engaged existing residents. The expansion planning coincided with beginning preparations for the 2016 growing season at the Detroit site, with greenhouse production of seedlings starting in late February. This parallel timing created valuable opportunities for visiting implementation teams to observe the full cycle of agricultural operations, from seed starting through planting planning and site preparation. These practical learning experiences complemented formal training, allowing future site leaders to develop hands-on understanding of systems they would soon implement in their own communities. March 2016 brought finalization of site selections in all 5 expansion cities, with property acquisition processes beginning through partnerships with local land banks, municipal agencies, and community development organizations. In each location, implementation teams included both locally recruited veterans and experienced staff members from Victory Gardens Detroit, who would provide on-site support during the crucial first year of operations. This blended approach ensured transfer of proven methodologies while incorporating essential local knowledge and leadership. As national expansion preparations continued, the Detroit operation prepared for its 4th growing season with ambitious production goals and expanded community programming. The agricultural team implemented new growing methods that would increase yield while maintaining sustainability, including expanded vertical growing systems, improved season extension techniques, and enhanced soil management practices. These innovations reflected continuous improvement processes that had characterized Victory Gardens Detroit since its beginning, with each growing season building on lessons from previous experience. April 2016 marked both the 4th anniversary of Victory Gardens, Detroit's official launch, and the groundbreaking ceremonies for the first expansion sites in Baltimore and Philadelphia. These simultaneous milestones created opportunity for reflection on the project's remarkable journey from Sarah's hidden garden to an emerging national network of veteran-led urban agriculture centers. What had begun as one homeless veteran's effort to create food security for herself had evolved into a comprehensive model for urban renewal being implemented in cities throughout the country. The anniversary celebration in Detroit featured the premiere of From Seeds to Victory, a documentary film chronicling the project's development through interviews with Sarah, Marcus, veteran employees, and community members. The film captured both the impressive physical transformation of the once abandoned property and the profound personal transformations experienced by veterans who had found purpose, community, and economic opportunity through the project. Screenings were held simultaneously at all 5 expansion sites, creating shared experience across the emerging national network while introducing the Victory Gardens story to new communities. Spring 2016 brought full implementation activity at all 5 expansion sites, with ground preparation, infrastructure development, and initial planting proceeding according to carefully developed timelines. In each city, the core Victory Gardens model was adapted to local conditions while maintaining fundamental principles of veteran leadership, community engagement, and integrated approaches to food production, education, and economic development. These adaptations demonstrated the model's flexibility while creating valuable learning opportunities that would inform future expansion to additional cities. As the national network began taking physical form, Sarah's vision extended beyond the initially planned 20 cities to broader systems change that could support community-based urban agriculture nationwide. Working with policy experts, she identified regulatory barriers that made implementation unnecessarily challenging and developed recommendations for federal, state, and local policy reforms that would facilitate similar initiatives regardless of connection to the formal Victory Gardens network. These policy recommendations addressed issues ranging from zoning regulations to health department requirements, veteran benefit systems to agricultural financing mechanisms, creating comprehensive blueprint for regulatory environments that would support urban agriculture as strategy for community renewal. By addressing systemic barriers rather than seeking special exceptions for Victory Gardens projects, this approach reflected commitment to creating opportunity for all communities facing challenges of food insecurity, vacant property, and veteran homelessness. The summer of 2016 marked a transformative period for the Victory Gardens network as the original Detroit site reached peak production capacity while the 5 expansion locations established their initial growing operations. The simultaneous development across multiple cities created a powerful demonstration of how quickly the model could transform abandoned urban spaces into productive community assets, with visible changes occurring weekly as neglected properties became vibrant centers of agricultural activity and community engagement. In Detroit, the fifth growing season represented the culmination of years of soil building, infrastructure development, and operational refinement. The once barren 2-acre site now featured sophisticated growing systems producing over 90,000 pounds of vegetables annually, with crop selection carefully balanced between high-value produce for financial sustainability and culturally appropriate varieties reflecting the neighborhood's diverse residents. The operation had achieved 85% financial sustainability through earned income, with only 15% of operating costs requiring philanthropic support, an extraordinary accomplishment for a social enterprise focused on community benefit rather than profit maximization. The contrast between Victory Gardens Detroit's current state and Sarah Jenkins' initial hidden garden offered powerful visual testimony to what determined individuals could accomplish with limited resources and unwavering commitment. Visitors to the site often expressed amazement at the transformation, with many unable to imagine that the thriving agricultural center had begun with discarded seeds planted by a homeless veteran using improvised tools in what had been considered worthless land. This dramatic before and after narrative became a central element in Victory Gardens' communication strategy, demonstrating possibilities for similar transformation in challenged neighborhoods throughout America. When people see what this place used to be, they stop making excuses about why change isn't possible in their own communities, Sarah explained to a visiting congressional delegation touring the Detroit site. This transformation didn't require special circumstances or extraordinary resources, just persistent effort applied consistently over time with clear vision and community engagement. Every city in America has abandoned spaces and underutilized human potential. Our model simply connects these resources in ways that create value for everyone involved. The 5 expansion sites, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Cleveland, St. Louis, and Newark, each experienced unique challenges and opportunities during their initial implementation phase. In Baltimore, extensive soil contamination required innovative remediation strategies, with Victory Gardens technical advisors developing raised bed systems that enabled productive growing while permanent soil restoration processes proceeded. Underneath, Philadelphia's site faced water access limitations that prompted development of advanced rainwater harvesting systems capturing runoff from adjacent buildings. Cleveland's harsh climate necessitated enhanced season extension techniques, adapted from Victory Gardens Detroit's greenhouse operations. St. Louis addressed security concerns through community-based monitoring systems that reduced vandalism, while building neighborhood investment in the project's success. Newark navigated complex zoning requirements that initially limited agricultural activities until Victory Gardens legal advisors helped secure necessary variances. These site-specific challenges created valuable learning opportunities for the entire network, with solutions developed in one location quickly shared with all sites through regular video conferences, detailed case studies, and periodic in-person gatherings of implementation teams. This knowledge-sharing approach accelerated development across the network while building collaborative relationships that transcended geographic distance, creating a supportive community of practice focused on continuous improvement and adaptive problem-solving. The national expansion attracted increasing media attention, with coverage extending beyond specialized agricultural publications to mainstream news outlets, fascinated by the story of a formerly homeless veteran whose small garden had grown into a nationwide movement for community renewal. Feature articles appeared in Time, Newsweek, and The Atlantic, while television segments on national morning shows brought Victory Gardens' narrative to millions of viewers. This media exposure generated thousands of inquiries from communities seeking to implement similar initiatives, creating both opportunity and challenge for the rapidly growing organization. To manage this overwhelming interest without compromising quality, Sarah and Marcus developed a tiered support system providing resources appropriate to each community's readiness level and implementation capacity. Free online resources offered basic guidance for grassroots initiatives, while structured webinars provided more detailed implementation support for communities with established leadership and identified sites. Full consulting relationships remained limited to locations with demonstrated commitment, appropriate resources, and strong veteran involvement, ensuring that intensive support went to initiatives most likely to succeed while basic guidance remained widely accessible. The growing national profile brought Victory Gardens to the attention of major corporations, seeking meaningful social impact initiatives aligned with their business interests. In July 2016, National Grocery Corporation approached Sarah and Marcus about establishing a formal purchasing relationship that would provide guaranteed market access for produce from all Victory Gardens sites while supplying the company's urban stores with locally grown products increasingly demanded by consumers. This potential partnership presented both tremendous opportunity and significant questions about maintaining community focus while engaging with corporate systems. After careful consideration and consultation with veteran leaders from all 6 active sites, Sarah negotiated an innovative partnership agreement that balanced commercial opportunity with community benefit. The final arrangement guaranteed that at least 60% of each site's production would remain available for local distribution through affordable community markets, with only surplus production sold to National Grocery at premium prices that enhanced financial sustainability. This balanced approach maintained priority for addressing local food insecurity, while creating stable revenue streams that supported organizational sustainability. The National Grocery Partnership included additional benefits beyond purchasing agreements. The company provided logistical support for produce distribution, professional development opportunities for Victory Gardens staff through its training programs, and technical assistance for food safety certification that enhanced market access for all products. Most significantly, the partnership included National Grocery's commitment to prioritize hiring Victory Gardens culinary program graduates at its in-store food service operations, creating additional employment pathways for veterans completing training at any network location. Corporate interest extended beyond the grocery sector, with construction, technology, and financial services companies all approaching Victory Gardens about potential partnerships during summer 2016, rather than pursuing multiple corporate relationships. Simultaneously, Sarah established a deliberate evaluation process, ensuring that any partnership would significantly advance the organization's mission while respecting its core values of veteran leadership, community benefit, and environmental sustainability. This selective approach maintained focus on quality impact rather than rapid expansion, reflecting the disciplined decision-making that had characterized Victory Gardens since its beginning. As the national network developed, Sarah recognized the need for formal evaluation mechanisms that could document impacts consistently across all locations while identifying opportunities for improvement. Working with researchers from 3 universities, she developed comprehensive assessment protocols measuring outcomes across multiple dimensions: agricultural productivity, food access improvement, economic impact, veteran employment, community engagement, and environmental restoration. These standardized metrics enabled meaningful comparison between sites, while providing empirical evidence of the model's effectiveness for potential funders, policymakers, and implementation partners. The initial evaluation results from expansion. Sites demonstrated remarkably consistent positive impacts despite varying local conditions. After just 4 months of operation, All 5 new locations showed significant improvement in neighborhood fresh food access, with between 400 and 700 residents per site purchasing affordable produce from Victory Gardens markets. Economic impacts included creation of 8 to 12 full-time equivalent jobs per site, with 75 to 80% filled by formerly homeless veterans. Environmental improvements included conversion of approximately 2 acres per site from degraded condition to productive use, with corresponding reductions in illegal dumping and associated environmental hazards. These consistent positive outcomes across diverse locations provided powerful validation of the Victory Gardens model's transferability, demonstrating that the approach Sarah had developed in Detroit could create similar benefits in very different urban contexts when implemented with fidelity to core principles. The evaluation findings attracted attention from additional municipalities seeking to address urban challenges through integrated approaches rather than conventional single-focus programs that often failed to create lasting change in struggling neighborhoods. The demonstrated success of initial expansion sites accelerated planning for the next phase of growth, with selection processes beginning for 5 additional cities to join the network in 2017, learning from first phase implementation experiences. Sarah refined site selection criteria to emphasize factors most strongly associated with successful outcomes: strong local veteran organization partnerships, supportive municipal policies, available properties with adequate sun exposure and manageable contamination levels, and community leadership willing to engage meaningfully with project development rather than simply receiving external intervention. This refined selection approach reflected Sarah's commitment to quality implementation over rapid growth, ensuring that the Victory Gardens model would maintain its integrity and effectiveness as the network expanded, rather than pursuing maximum expansion velocity. The growth strategy prioritized sustainable development that would create lasting community assets, rather than temporary showcases vulnerable to failure when initial enthusiasm faded. This measured approach sometimes frustrated external stakeholders eager for immediate implementation in their communities, but consistently produced more resilient projects capable of achieving long-term impact. As summer transitioned to fall 2016, all 6 active Victory Gardens sites prepared for harvest season activities that would provide both agricultural yields and community engagement opportunities. Each location planned harvest festivals, celebrating the growing season's accomplishments while introducing the Victory Gardens concept to broader community audiences through food-centered events, combining practical education with community building. These celebrations reflected Sarah's understanding that successful community agriculture required cultural engagement beyond merely providing physical access to fresh produce. The Detroit Harvest Festival, held in September 2016, attracted over 2,000 attendees from throughout the city for a day-long celebration featuring cooking demonstrations, gardening workshops, children's activities, live music, and community meals, prepared by culinary program graduates using on-site produce. The event highlighted both Victory Gardens Detroit's agricultural production and its broader community impact, with veteran employees providing tours that explained both growing methods and the personal transformations they had experienced through participation in the project. Similar festivals at expansion sites attracted between 500 and 1,200 attendees each, building community awareness and engagement while celebrating initial successes. These events provided valuable opportunities for community members to connect directly with the projects, transforming abstract concepts of urban agriculture and veteran employment into tangible experiences of place, people, and possibility. The festivals also served as powerful volunteer recruitment opportunities, with many attendees signing up to support ongoing activities after experiencing the projects firsthand. The successful harvest festivals coincided with completion of fundamental infrastructure development at all 5 expansion sites, with each location establishing essential growing systems, water access, security features, and community gathering spaces during their first 6 months of operation. This rapid physical development demonstrated the effectiveness of the implementation methodology Sarah had developed, with standardized planning protocols and technical assistance enabling new sites to accomplish in months what had originally required years at the Detroit location. October 2016 brought a significant milestone for the Victory Gardens network when the United States Department of Agriculture announced a new Urban Agriculture Innovation Zone program directly inspired by the Victory Gardens model. The program would provide technical assistance, regulatory flexibility, and funding support for community-based urban agriculture initiatives nationwide, with specific emphasis on projects addressing food insecurity while creating economic opportunities for veterans and other underserved populations. This federal initiative represented remarkable validation of the approach Sarah had developed, transforming her grassroots innovation into national policy that would support similar efforts, regardless of formal connection to the Victory Gardens network. In announcing the program, Agriculture Secretary Williams specifically credited Victory Gardens' influence. What began as one veteran's effort to feed herself has grown into a model that can transform how we think about urban food systems, vacant property, and veteran reintegration nationwide. The Innovation Zone program adapts the Victory Gardens approach to federal policy, creating supportive framework for communities, implementing similar initiatives while reducing regulatory barriers that have historically limited urban agriculture's potential for addressing multiple community challenges simultaneously. The federal program included $25 million in implementation grants for qualifying initiatives, with priority given to projects demonstrating veteran leadership, community ownership, and integrated approaches addressing multiple community needs simultaneously. Victory Gardens would serve as technical assistance provider for grant recipients, creating additional pathways for sharing the model nationwide, while generating earned income supporting the organization's core operations. This arrangement reflected growing recognition of Victory Gardens as both direct service provider and knowledge leader in the emerging field of community-based urban agriculture for economic development. The federal program announcement attracted renewed media attention to Victory Gardens, with Sarah Jenkins appearing on multiple national news programs to discuss both the original Detroit project's development and the emerging national movement it had inspired. These interviews consistently emphasized that Victory Gardens' success reflected not exceptional circumstances but replicable methodologies that could work in any community with abandoned property, food access challenges, and underutilized human potential, particularly veterans struggling with homelessness and civilian reintegration. What we've created isn't magical or dependent on unique conditions, Sarah explained during a CNN interview reaching millions of viewers. It's a systematic approach to connecting resources that already exist in every struggling urban neighborhood. Vacant land, people needing meaningful work, and communities needing fresh food. The innovation isn't in creating new resources, but in connecting existing ones in ways that create value for everyone involved. That's why this model works across such different cities and neighborhoods. The fundamental elements are already present everywhere, just waiting to be connected purposefully. This national platform enabled Sarah to advocate for policy changes, extending beyond agricultural programs to address systemic barriers affecting homeless veterans nationwide. Her recommendations included streamlined access to military service records required for benefit applications, expanded transitional housing specifically designed for veterans with PTSD, integrated service delivery, preventing veterans from navigating fragmented support systems, and employment programs recognizing military skills, rather than requiring credentials that disregarded valuable service experience. These advocacy efforts reflected Sarah's commitment to addressing root causes of veteran homelessness, rather than merely providing services to those already experiencing housing insecurity. As 2016 drew to a close, Victory Gardens Detroit prepared for its first winter with complete financial sustainability, achieved through diversified revenue streams including agricultural sales, value-added products, educational programs, consulting services, and technology licensing. This milestone represented extraordinary accomplishment for a social enterprise, focused primarily on community benefit rather than profit maximization, demonstrating that well-designed operations could achieve financial viability while maintaining strong commitment to social mission. The Detroit site's achievement provided powerful example for expansion locations working towards similar sustainability. With proven revenue models, they could adapt to local conditions and opportunities. The Detroit site's financial sustainability coincided with significant organizational development for the national network, with formal incorporation of Victory Gardens America as umbrella entity supporting all network locations while maintaining local leadership and community ownership at each site. This structure balanced network cohesion with site autonomy, creating framework for quality assurance and knowledge sharing, while respecting the unique conditions and priorities characterizing each community. Sarah assumed the role of executive director for the national organization while maintaining connection to the Detroit site as senior advisor supporting the veteran leadership team that now manage daily operations. This organizational evolution reflected Sarah's commitment to creating systems that could continue without her daily involvement, a principle she had learned through military service, where effective units required distributed leadership rather than dependence on any single individual. By developing organizational structures supporting her vision without requiring her constant presence, Sarah ensured that Victory Gardens would continue creating impact long after her direct involvement eventually ended, creating lasting legacy rather than temporary intervention dependent on her personal leadership. December 2016 brought unexpected recognition when Sarah Jenkins was named to the Time 100 list of the world's most influential people, with the accompanying profile written by the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, highlighting how her innovation had transformed approaches to both urban agriculture and veteran services nationwide. The profile emphasized how Sarah's military training had provided foundation for her civilian accomplishments. Jenkins applied the same strategic thinking, resource optimization, and unwavering determination to community challenges that she had previously directed toward military objectives, demonstrating how veteran leadership can create extraordinary civilian impact when properly supported and recognized. This high-profile recognition brought Sarah to the White House for a special event honoring innovative approaches to veteran reintegration, where President Anderson announced a comprehensive federal initiative supporting veteran-led community development nationwide. The Veterans Community Impact Corps would provide funding, technical assistance, and regulatory support for veteran-led initiatives addressing community challenges through social enterprise approaches similar to the Victory Gardens model. This program represented unprecedented federal commitment to supporting veteran leadership in civilian contexts, recognizing that military experience created valuable capabilities for addressing complex community challenges when properly channeled and supported. The presidential announcement included appointment of Sarah Jenkins to the program's advisory council, positioning her to influence federal policy while continuing to lead Victory Gardens development. This appointment represented extraordinary journey from homelessness to national leadership, with Sarah now helping shape the very systems that had previously failed to support her, and countless other veterans experiencing similar challenges. Her perspective as someone who had personally navigated veteran homelessness brought crucial insight to policy development, ensuring that programs would address actual needs rather than bureaucratic assumptions about veteran experiences and capabilities. As 2017 began, Victory Gardens stood at a transformative moment, The original Detroit site had achieved complete financial sustainability while maintaining strong community impact. 5 expansion locations were successfully established and developing towards similar sustainability. 5 additional cities were preparing for implementation, and federal policy had embraced the model for nationwide application. What had begun as one homeless veteran's desperate effort to create food security for herself had evolved into a national movement transforming approaches to urban agriculture, veteran services, and community development. Looking toward the future, Sarah reflected on the journey during a staff gathering celebrating the new year. 5 years ago, I was planting salvaged seeds in hidden soil because I had no other way to feed myself. Today we're planting a movement that's feeding communities nationwide while creating paths from homelessness to leadership for hundreds of veterans who simply needed opportunity to apply their skills in meaningful civilian contexts. This transformation wasn't created by any single person's brilliance or any unique circumstance. It grew from connecting resources that already existed in new ways that created value for everyone involved. That's the real lesson of Victory Gardens, the solutions to our most challenging problems often already exist within the very communities experiencing those problems. Our job is simply to create the conditions where those solutions can grow. This philosophical approach, recognizing and nurturing potential where others saw only problems, characterized Victory Gardens' fundamental innovation. Rather than viewing vacant property as liability, homeless veterans as burden, or food insecurity as intractable challenge, the Victory Gardens model recognized the interconnections between these issues and the potential for integrated solutions benefiting all stakeholders. By transforming liabilities into assets through purposeful connection, the model created sustainable value while empowering those previously marginalized to become leaders in community renewal. The essence of Victory Gardens' success lay not in agricultural techniques or business models, but in this profound shift in perspective that transformed how communities viewed both physical spaces and human potential. By demonstrating that one homeless veteran could create nationally significant innovation through applied determination and practical problem solving, Sarah Jenkins had shattered limiting assumptions about who could create meaningful change and what resources were required. This paradigm shift represented Victory Gardens' most important contribution, not just growing food, but growing possibility where others saw only limitation and despair. As Sarah looked toward Victory Gardens' continued expansion throughout 2017 and beyond, she remained grounded in the daily realities of the Detroit garden where everything had begun. Despite growing national responsibilities, she maintained regular hours working alongside veteran employees in the growing areas, heaping her hands in the soil that had first offered pathway from homelessness to hope. This continued connection to practical agricultural work reflected her understanding that meaningful leadership required ongoing engagement with fundamental realities rather than separation into abstract management removed from daily operations. The Victory Gardens story continued unfolding across an expanding national network, with each site developing unique expressions of core principles while contributing to collective learning about how urban agriculture could catalyze community renewal. What had begun with $2 discarded seeds had grown into $2 million, investment that transformed not just one community, but an entire approach to urban challenges nationwide. As Sarah often reminded visitors touring the Detroit site, never underestimate what determined people can grow from the smallest beginnings when they refuse to accept that anything or anyone is worthless. The seed of transformation is already present in every abandoned place and every overlooked person. Our responsibility is simply to provide the conditions where that potential can flourish. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.